Today we're going to be talking about 5 things you absolutely have to know before starting medicine in 2022. Things are very different in this day and age, and that's what we're going to be dissecting today. So let's take it straight into the show. So Abdul, let's talk a little bit about medicine. So medicine obviously involves a lot of studying. Yeah, we all know that. How has things changed over the last couple of years or over the last 10 years in terms of the trend and how people study and how people should be studying now?
So let's be honest, medicine is a very competitive subject. If you've got into medical school, then well done. Now the hard work kind of begins. But the best way to describe medicine is there's a lot of content to consume and not necessarily in too much detail. There is detail, but not to the degree of other conventional subjects. Medicine obviously has changed a lot as a career. You know, the way junior doctors are, the way clinicians are practicing, the increase in technology, kind of the elements social media plays, right? So I think it's important to know how all of those play when you're going into medical school. So I think the best way to break it down is kind of the 2 big things about medicine is kind of the academic side of things, the studying, the revising, the placements versus the social aspect of things, right? So let's start on the academic side of things. It's hard, it's tough. You're going to be spending a lot of time revising and studying, not because even if you are the smartest person in the room, the most intelligent people, it's just due to the sheer volume of work. So the first thing, the number 1 rule I want to say is you will fall behind. You will not be able to keep on top of all your lectures, on top of all your tutorials. You will not be able to follow that curriculum, right? In the beginning you will, but it will catch up with you and you will naturally fall behind, right? So there is no need and no reason to feel you need to stay ahead of the teaching program, the lectures, right? Because think about it, you're in 9 to 5, 5 days a week, pretty much in pre-clinical years doing multiple lectures a day. So you cannot stay on top of it. So understanding that, the most important thing to also understand is the way you studied and revised and did well in your GCSEs and A-levels is very different to the way you will revise and study and do well in the first 2 years, at least, of preclinical medicine. So those are the 2 main things that come to mind. What are your things from an academic point of view?
So I think you covered the main core principles of it all, that you're going to fall behind, very large volume, and it's about management. And I think for being that we're in 2022 now compared to being in 1990 or 1980s is that we're in the era of technology, right? So it's important that with your studies, you're taking advantage of all the tools that you have today that medics of yesterday didn't have. So for example, using tools like Notion, our platform Peerr, platforms that help you organize, study more efficiently. So like you said, if the volume's going to be a lot, right? You need to be able to manage what you're going to learn, what you need to know, what's going to be assessed, what you must know if you're going to be when you become an F1 doctor, right? So I think take advantage of the tools to study better. Like we call it obviously study smart, not just hard. So that's important in the academic world. In terms of the distinctions, the awards and things like that, I think this is where we have to talk a little bit about the year matters. Being in 2022 now matters about that. Before, I think a lot of people got whatever they got based on merit, but nowadays your network, who you know, also matters, right? Not just your awards. Yes, go and get the distinction, the merits and all of that jazz, but don't forget. What do you think about that aspect actually? What do you think about medics balancing getting the awards, the best grades the uni has ever seen versus developing a strong network?
I agree. Maybe back in the days, the people that did the best in exams, got the best scores, did well. But look at the nature of the portfolio when you apply it, even for like academic F1, right? There's a lot of white space questions. And those are like, what projects did you get up to? Show examples of leadership. Show examples of problem solving and stuff like that. It's not just solely reliant on kind of your grades. And we recently had Med Crisis Dr. Rohan, who's a consultant cardiologist now, and as a medical student, I think you should have foresight, right? You should start building the skill set that allows you to excel in your career, right? So he said pretty soon enough, the portfolio or the interviews when you are applying for junior doctors or when you are applying for a consultancy post isn't just about, okay, how many operations have you done? How many scans have you interpreted? How many X, Y, and Z have you done? It's more about the other soft skills, right? You know, publications, research, what skill sets do you bring to the table other than medicine, right? So I think medical school, in addition to the academic side of things, is a very good place to start developing and honing in those skills, because you have to remember, as an 18, 19-year-old, these are skills that may not come naturally to you, maybe not skills that you paid attention to. So from an academic point of view, I would say do well, aim your best to do well in exams, but like we said, we had a previous video on this, don't I don't want to say jeopardize, but don't sacrifice other elements of medical school or even university to kind of get first decile ranking.
Absolutely. So that brings us nicely onto the next topic, which is basically, so when you're at university, when you're at medical school, you're starting in 2022, we talked about the studies and everything, but there's also life outside studying. What should you get involved in? What shouldn't you get involved in? What's beneficial? What's not so beneficial, would you say?
So, all right. So we've talked about the academic side of things. So now a big part of university life is the social aspect, the extracurricular activities. So as a medical student, I would say, and I would highly, highly recommend, get involved in societies. So there are societies on pretty much anything you can think of, from kind of sporting societies to debating societies to finance to investing. And what's good about 2022 is there's medtech societies, there's innovation societies, which we know were non-existent when we were going into medical school, right? So if you have an interest in that, and let's be honest, medicine is now increasing the uptake of technology, get involved in these societies. The other thing I want to mention with societies is there's the standard attending societal events, and then there's the actual active role that you can do in societies, which is taking up committee positions. So I don't know what your thoughts are about taking up society positions or committee positions, because obviously that is a time sink. But where do you see the value in that?
So start with step one, which is what you said, which is find a society that resonates with you, your passion and things like that, right? And then the way I see it is get involved at the higher levels of the societies and committees, because you want to develop those other skills. You can say, yeah, I'm going to learn from books, and sometimes you learn by just doing. When you become the secretary, when you become the president, when you become the financial officer, the media designer, whatever it is, you start to develop those skills in the job. And I think it's crucial. So as a medic, as we said, in 2022 and going forwards, a lot of people are diversifying them skills. You want to be a diversified medical student, not just an academic, not just a distinction award-winning medic. You want to be also capable of managing, having leadership skills, being able to innovate. Because then think about it, as a consultant, imagine someone asks you a question, all right, so what skills do you bring where you can actually take our department forwards and compete with maybe leading departments across the world, forget the country. You should have those ideas. You should be creative. So getting involved at the higher level of societies develops skills that are very difficult to develop from books and from courses online. Sometimes you can learn the theory online, but you need to then be able to execute, right? It's a playground. Societies are a playground for you to execute your skills and all of that jazz. So yeah, that's my thoughts on that.
Taking it back to the first point, so it's important to do well in your exams. It's important to use technologies that are more prevalent now than they were before. iPads, laptops, platforms like Notions, platforms like Peerr. How do you manage doing well academically while also getting involved in a society committee position? You've done it. You are president of a medical research society. You're part of MAR, the Bangladesh Society. How did you manage it? Because you were also a first decile student.
So I think we have to talk about tech enabling and not tech enabling, right? I think when I went through medical school, when I did those years, right, I wasn't really tech enabled. To be honest, first of all, I couldn't even afford a good laptop that was proficient at working like that. So it was a lot of just time, just pure time, lots of time studying in the books, head in the books, lots of time in the library. And then when I was working on the societies or be it the charity, again, it was lots of time invested, right? But there was a downside to all of that time. It meant my social life was almost zero, right? So I wasn't out there. To be honest, the network I've got now, that's a network that's been built post-university. So this is a sort of point I'm saying to myself now, what would I do differently as a med student, right? So now we're tech enabled. Now I understand how to study smart, not just hard. I studied hard. That was it. So studying smart is involving things like doing quizzes, doing exam papers, doing mock papers, more than just rereading and highlighting, right? Studying smart is also using technology out there that puts spaced repetition into your calendar. I used to do it by hand and plan out my whole calendar, right? So that's using time again. So I used a lot of time, which I think you can now save and reallocate. It's the reallocation of resources that you have. So as a med student, right, reallocate time towards things that you like, your passions. Because I never got to explore my passions at the earlier stage, right? It was only later on I got to unearth them. So if you're going into first year, you should see it as it's a blue ocean for you to start exploring whatever you like: photography, design, business, non-business topics, arts, literature, whatever it is. So yeah,
I agree with that. And that brings me on and it reminds me of the point. A lot of medical students get too consumed in the studying, the revising, kind of getting caught up on kind of smashing the exams, and they kind of forget that this is also university. They miss out on the university experience. So I would say try maintain the social life, try maintain going out with your friends, having a fun time. The other thing that we should have done that we didn't do, and I feel would have been beneficial now, was there is this concept of medics only hanging around with medics at university, right? So your network is important. We all know it's important to grow your network. Opportunities are everywhere. Medics always tend to hang around with medics, right? Because you're in university for such a long period of time. You're there with each other every single day. We didn't. Okay, looking back, King's was such a great university. We had lawyers, finance, people working in tech, coding, software. Think of how good our network would have been if we engaged with them, got to know them, became friends with them, saw how their world was, how their career trajectory and path was, right? So university is a great time to reach out, to see other industries, see how they work, build a network. Because once you start working, especially as a junior doctor, you won't even have time to see your friends, let alone meet other people. Exactly. But imagine you form those bonds and learn about those while at med school.
Yeah. And if you're sitting there thinking about networking and all it means is taking opportunity, it's not that at all. It's the idea you can work with people, you can connect, and you can work on projects together and come up with unique, fun, exciting startups, projects, businesses, whatever it is, or even share passions together, just chill out together even. But you're right, what happens is at med school, if you're in a campus that's purely medics only, you all think the same. You're all like excellent at A levels and chemistry and biology and understanding difficult theories. But what about people like the engineers who think about architectural design and they think in a very unique way, and the lawyers who think in a different way, and the literature students who think in a unique way? So it's very important to, I think, yes, you're right, mixed with all the different disciplines out there, get to know each other, be careful of just being around the same minds, basically. So yeah.
Before we move on, and this is important, especially for 2022 new medical students that are entering medical school, is medicine as a career is changing. There's loads of avenues opening up. And what I mean by that is a lot of medics are pursuing careers outside of medicine, in investment banking, in consulting, in finance, in law. And I think if you do have a passion, or if you do feel like you want to explore it, medical school is a great time to do it, because it becomes very difficult while you're in training or in F1, F2. And this is something that's new, that wasn't there when we were there, is internships. Yeah. So as a medical student, you have the luxury of having summer holidays. Try do interns at a bank, a VC, or even a med tech company if you do want to work in digital health or healthcare. So that is a big hack, and it will help your CV a lot. And I think as bad as it is, and skills and attributes, people still do look at your CV. And you need to have certain things on your CV to give you that kind of competitive edge. So definitely be aware of these opportunities. Speak to your seniors, speak to your mentors. Even on Peerr, there's articles on how to get into health tech, how to get an internship. So that's something to be mindful of if you are interested in the space.
Absolutely. So talking about the second point now that I wanted to bring up is talking about the publishing game, because It's a word that's thrown around a lot at med school, and it causes lots of problems, pressures, stress, which I've noticed. So first of all, from the normal foundation application, they've removed the points for publications. All right, so you don't need it for a job. All right. So the next question is, should you publish? Even if I'm not going to get points for my foundation year job, should I bother with publishing? What can publishing bring to the table for you? That's quite an important question.
So looking back, medical school was the place to develop and hone skills, develop, grow personally, and kind of mentally. And I think what we did, or what I did, was just kind of tick list, get through this, get through the exams, become an F1 doctor, right? Publication is something very different to studying exams, going to lectures. It opens up a different side of your mind. It opens up a different side of your brain, in the sense that it's important for analytical thinking, critical thinking, analysis, hypothesis. How do you write a good piece of content, or how do you write a good article that you want to publish in a journal, right? We'll go into how you secure these opportunities, but you don't get taught how to write properly. And writing is very important, right? Expressing yourselves, communicating, yeah? So these are things that I genuinely believe will pay dividends much later down the line, right? So publication is a very good way of learning about research. Medicine is evidence-based, right? Especially in a country like the UK. It opens up your horizons. It opens up opportunities. It makes you think in a different way, which you're not taught normally in medical school.
No, absolutely. So I completely agree with that. So talking about publication. So publication is all about, it's about diversification of your skills, right? It's about going into a different world. The scientists out there, the people doing research, they think in a different way. They're answering different questions. I think as a doctor as well, you're not just a clinician. You are also someone who is answering questions that are unknown. You're conducting experiments. You might get involved in clinical trials and so forth. So it's important for you to understand the processes behind research and publishing knowledge, because at the end of the day, the guidelines are based upon evidence which is published, right? So you need to understand that pathway. So I think as a medic, if you said, should I just publish? It's not just about publish. Go and acquire the skills that are needed to publish. But also what's important to say is that to publish, don't just be a data monkey for someone. Okay, what do I mean by that? So let me explain. So someone's got a massive project, right? And they say, do you want to be involved in this research? And all you do is they give you 1 million notes, and you're told to just extract a certain number or something like that. You learn zilch. You don't understand anything that's going on. All you're doing is taking a number from the files and putting it into another spreadsheet. You doing that, I think, is useless. I'll be honest. I've done that before, and I've run away from people who've made me do that, believe it or not. But then I've been with people who taught me how to, what question is being answered, why, what's the background research, why we're doing it, why we're publishing it, why choose certain journals, why are we targeting certain impact factors. And then what happens is they take you a step further. You can publish stuff into journals, right? But then you can go and present that at conferences. And this is a game changer, because when you're at certain conferences, you start to rub shoulders with different people. And there again, you start to meet different people of different minds, of different specialties, of different grades. And then again, it's all about the network opportunity. Someone says to you, I'm working on something. Do you want to join me on that? You can take the opportunity, right? So I think publication is all about, again, diversification, seeing if you like that field, developing skills that makes you more competitive later on down the line. So it might be useless for your FPAS, but specialty training, consultancy, it might be relevant along that journey. And even if you go somewhere else, say into the corp industry or the pharmaceutical industry or somewhere like that, it's a great skill to have. I understand how research is conducted, how it's published, how it's presented. It's important you understand that. Anything to add to that?
So I remember there was a bit of anxiety trying to secure these opportunities for research and publications. I think it is a bit difficult in first or second year preclinical years, which we struggled with. But I think don't beat yourself up too much about it if you're struggling to find opportunities, if you feel like everyone else is publishing and you're not. Like, naturally, through your placements, you will meet consultants, you will meet people on your placements, and they're like, do you know what? I'm publishing a piece of work. Do you want to get involved? So you do have to be proactive. When you are interested in publishing or kind of doing research, be proactive. I think the best thing is speak to your mentors, your colleagues. If you're on placement, is a good way. Like we were on a pediatric placement where we did the research that ended up being published in a pediatric journal in America. So always speak to the registrars or the consultants and say, are there any publications or any research projects that are going? I want to be involved. And you can kind of continue that. Like places like King's or pretty much any medical school in the UK, you have access to so many scientists and researchers that you don't realize until you leave.
Yeah, exactly.
And all it takes is just an email, and they love having students. They love teaching their knowledge. They love getting more hands involved, right?
Yeah.
So be proactive, reach out to people on your placement, or literally go for a directory. If you're interested in genetics or neonates or something, like cardiology, find all the people that are doing cardiology in your university and reach out to them.
Exactly. Not even in your university, any clinician, any hospital.
Yeah, exactly.
So anywhere really, as long as you can get to them and communicate with them, that's fine. I think the other thing with publishing, what's important to understand is before you shoot for the stars and go for the publication in the Lancet, start with the basics. Cases that you can publish, letters you can publish, opinions you can publish. So work your way up. But of course, if you're with a team that's going to be publishing in the Lancet and you can get involved, then take the opportunity. So that's publishing, I think, that we've got to say for that. The next point that I have is talking about committing to a specialty early on. What's your thoughts on that? So everyone always starts at med school and they said, well, what are you going to become? Right? What's your thoughts on committing to something straight away?
So let's be honest. I think the vast majority of people, for some reason, want to be surgeons. And it's that typical thing, right? You're in a lecture theatre, the lecturer says, 70% of you lot are going to become GPs, and everyone, we did it, and you're looking at each other and you're thinking, what? Who wants to be a GP, right? It's the most dead, boring specialty. And you all graduate, you do foundation training, and then 70% do, in fact, want to do GPs, right? And it becomes true. I think when you commit so early on in your career, it kind of, I wouldn't say it's bad. I will say it takes away the opportunities and discoverabilities of other specialties that you may have found interesting and more in line with your personality, more in line with what you actually genuinely enjoy. And I think when you're a medical student, it's very difficult to have a good grasp and understanding of what a true specialty is like. You can have passions and general interest in it, but not until you start working, not until you go on placements and do taste weeks, do you really realize what a specialty involves.
So what can med students do then?
So I think you should always identify a handful of specialties. So I wouldn't say stick to one. Always have at least 2 or 3 where you're interested in, right? If it's surgery, what type of surgery? If it's in medicine, what type of medicine? Just to keep your options open, just to kind of allow yourself to wonder, to ponder, and expose yourself to other opportunities. So the best thing is kind of speak to doctors, junior doctors or registrars that are in the specialties, kind of see what their advice is. Because once you do it for a few years, they can kind of give you an honest answer. See what it entails, speak to your colleagues and friends. But the risk is essentially, if you stick yourself down like what I did to kind of what orthopedic surgery was the thing at the time, you kind of cut yourself short. You don't engage in other opportunities. You don't engage in other things which would have had added benefit, right? And I think we're too caught up on thinking unless it's directly involved with orthopedics, which was the case in my instance, you don't entertain it. But those things can be beneficial for your portfolio. They can be beneficial for your interviews, right? And there were so many opportunities that were presented to me, but I said no because it have to do with the bone. But looking back now and seeing other people have used those opportunities for teaching and portfolio points, you're thinking, oh wait, I should have done it.
Yeah. So I think, so you've hit the nail on the head. Some specialties give you extra points and stuff if you do it at med school. So I hear ophthalmology and things like that, sitting certain exams at medical school or doing certain courses like the one you did at surgery gives you an extra point or 2. But I think, as you said, the grander picture, if you look at the grander picture, don't obstruct opportunities that are trying to reach you just because you said that you're interested in only becoming a cardiologist, right? So I think be open. So as a med student, when you walk into all your placements, you will find naturally as well, you'll pretty much enjoy every specialty, but give yourself that freedom to explore, see what it's like, talk to the junior doctors, the consultants, see what it's like, and don't obstruct the opportunities, and don't be open to not tasting the specialty. Go in with an open mind. I think with the portfolio building aspect of it, you can build a portfolio to be, say you've done lots of research in cardiology, right? technically speaking, those publications and things have taught you loads. You've put your name out there. You've learned how to publish and stuff like that. There might be in a topic you no longer want, but you can sort of use the transferable skills to that. Of course, certain specialties might say, well, you need publications in this particular specialty. That's where you might be disadvantaged. So stay varied, stay diversified, I'd probably say. Unless like some people we knew from day one, they said they want to become an ophthalmologist, and 7-8 years down the line they are ST4 ST5 ophthalmologists.
There are always those kind of edge cases where they knew they know what they want to do, and they kind of build up for it, which is fair enough, right? Exactly. But in the vast majority, you should allow yourself the opportunity. There is no harm. The other thing I was going to say is, and where a prime example of it is, the person you are at the beginning of medical school will not be the same person you are by the end of it. I can guarantee it. Your passions, your priorities, life will change, right? Yeah. And I think when you commit so early on to a specialty, it may work against you. And then there's the concept, you're stressed because you're not getting the points. You're stressed because you're not getting publications in, let's say, neurosurgery, which is very difficult, right? And then you're missing out on everything. So it can affect your mental health. It can cause burnout because you're so gunning for a certain particular specialty. So be mindful about that. Just be open.
Absolutely. All right. So the next point that we're going to be talking about that we need to know before we start medicine, or you might be halfway through actually thinking about this, is intercalating. All right. So intercalating essentially is taking a year outside of medicine to study actually anything you like. You could go and study arts, business, or you could study a medical related topic like cardiovascular sciences, endocrinology, or whatever, right? Now, importantly, again, for the foundation year jobs, FPAS, they've removed points for this. So you could sit there and say, there's no point of intercalating. But what does it do for you, A? And in the long run, does it matter at all?
So going against my advice, I think it was the same for both me and you. I wanted to become an orthopedic surgeon. Guess what I did? I intercalated because I thought I'm going to get the points. I did get the points. But I did it thinking it's going to help my orthopedic journey, which is all right in a way, but maybe it wasn't the best decision. And there is a silver lining to it all. So I picked an intercalating degree because I thought it would make me more competitive when I become an orthopedic surgeon. What I later realized was the skill set, once again, and the skill acquisitions were incredible. Right? It made me think very differently to what medical school taught me. I'll be honest. Medical school for me was just memorizing as much as I can, banging out the questions on PassMed, getting through the exams, right? Intercalating, doing a research project, working with kind of materials, working in a lab, taught me a lot of things that are scientific, critical analysis and thinking, stats, etc., right? Which I would have never been exposed to. It was nice to take a break from medicine. And I think for me, the reason that the integrated year was one of the best things I did in medical school was obviously the module I did, which was in innovation technology, which opened up the world of entrepreneurship and innovation for me. And ever since then, my life took a different trajectory, right? And that was by chance. I didn't kind of go looking for it. I did the BSc to get into orthopedics, right? But the skills I acquired, the writing, learning about research, understanding, being able to present, experimenting, the confidence it gave me was something I didn't have prior to it.
I get that. So yeah, so similarly to you, I wanted to do cardiothoracics. So I decided I'm going to do cardiovascular sciences at Imperial. I got to Imperial, realised I wasn't at the campus, which I thought I'd be at, which was at South Kensington. I was in the Hammersmith campus. If I look back now and I could just change one thing about my intercalating, it would be the topic, right? So there's the really popular business and management course that Imperial do. In that very same cohort was the Quit Genius cohort at the time. So that's when they launched it, came up with the idea and everything. And I just remember if I could be amongst a cohort, I would have switched to be amongst that cohort and study whatever they studied and did whatever they did. So that's the only thing. So I think, but talking about it in a holistic way. So the question of should you intercalate, I firmly stand on the answer of yes. And the reason behind that is it's an opportunity to go and, again, diversify yourself. I'm all about diversification. I'm not about niching down into the tiniest of thing. I'm all about make sure you've got multiple different skills, you understand different things, and you're able to do loads of different tasks, and you have lots of abilities, essentially. I just feel like with the cardiovascular sciences, I learned a lot about research, publishing. I learned a lot about, like how you said, analytical thinking, critical thinking, strategizing even. I learned a lot about that because we had to read tons and tons of papers. And then writing, actually. Medical school doesn't teach you how to write, right? It teaches you about pattern recognition, pathology, answers essentially, right? And we were tested always in an MCQ format. Now, when you're tested with an open-ended answer, that's the challenge. So I found that going over to Imperial, I learned how to write a paper, which is a really difficult skill actually for a lot of people. So yeah, I think you should intercalate for sure. The topic, I think it just depends on who you are and what you want to do. Sometimes you don't know where you'll end up in 10, 15 years, like myself, right? I did cardiovascular sciences, but I'm now in a complete different world where retrospectively the business management course would have fitted me better. But that's the way life is. So I think strategize a bit more, see where you might want to end up, and just go and taste it. Go and acquire the skills. Look at it from a skill acquisition point of view and not from a, I'm going to become an orthopedic surgeon, a cardiothoracic surgeon, so this will help me. So that's it for intercalating for me. Any other remarks on intercalating?
I completely agree.
All right. The last one we want to talk about is, I talked about tech enabling ourselves in the year of 2022 as medical students. You no longer have to sit there with ancient textbooks, right? Now, we've launched Peerr, and the reason we launched Peerr is because there was a massive problem at medical school in particular. That was that there was little room to diversify yourself. There was little room to share what you wanted amongst your peers, amongst different people, whether they were junior doctors, registrars, consultants. There was limited room to earn money. Okay, you went out and got a part-time job, and we thought, you know what? Technology can enable you to study better, study more efficiently, build your network, and build an income stream. Why should students consider using Peerr?
I think it all comes down to the question of work smart, work hard, right? And Peerr is essentially a platform we designed where two things. There's a lot of value learning from your peers, people that have been there, done it, right? And when you're about to sit an exam, or when you're about to sit an exam, someone like a senior who sat a few weeks ago, maybe a year, they have the best, closest, most up-to-date knowledge in terms of what comes up in exam, how to best revise for it, right? Peerr is the place for that. You go into Peerr, you can see people that have sat the exam you're about to sit. Secondly, when studying, learning, active recall, understanding is important. How do you do that? Not writing 100 times, but what are the things that you found that were important or you wish you had done when it comes to learning?
Exactly. So I read a lot, and I read and read and read. And then you realize that it's the testing part that's really valuable. And that's why in the latter years of my medical school journey, I always had like 3-4 hours a day testing myself. And when you test yourself, you want to test yourself from various angles, right? So you might learn about a particular disease. You want to learn about the signs, symptoms, the investigations you can do. What are the rare extreme presentations, right? So for example, when you've got MIs that present without chest pain, you should still be able to spot that. Right, so in the A&E setting, for example, if you've got an 85-year-old with diabetes and hypertension who just tells you they feel weird, that's enough for you as a doctor to start investigating it might be an MI, right? And I've had cases where they've said that, very obscure, but the risk factors, when you understand what a risk factor is, you understand that MI is high on the list. And lo and behold, the patient had a troponin over 2,000. Okay, so I think learning the efficient study methods are important. Active recall is that, all right? Then, as I said, learning from different angles. Now, I'm going to give a shout out to one account on Peerr, actually, MedBlog. I think the person's still a final year medical student. Now, they're incredible at anatomy illustrations. Okay, so what they've done is they've put up little notes on the anatomy of the hand, the anatomy of the foot, and they've done quizzes with that. And they're custom, right? And they're really greatly drawn. You can see each bit very clearly. So taking bite-sized information from someone who loves and is passionate about that topic, about teaching that topic, helps you absorb better. That's the way I see it. So active recall, that's a really important one. You already talked about the idea of been there and done it. Another shout out for another account, Eddie Phillips. He's at Manchester University. He understands the style that he's being tested at. So if you're walking into Manchester University, you need to follow Eddie Phillips. And then you want, as I said, so if you're going to be tested, you're going to be tested from different angles. You also want to be tested in volume, right? And if when it comes to volume, you have to think about it. You want to be tested from the most basic levels, what are the bones of the hand, to then functionality, the tendons that run underneath the finger, the muscles of the hand. You want to be tested at the most finer details, right? That hones your ability. You reading about the hand again and again, useless really. You'll forget it. It decays that knowledge. So that's that. Let's talk from a networking point of view. What does that do? What does Peerr do for your network?
So Peerr is a great place to kind of find other people in the same space, other people that are exploring avenues or career paths that you are also interested in pursuing. It's a great place to, so let's do something, a real life example, something that's topical. One is Zuhaib Siddiqui, who's an ENT surgeon. He gave tips on what life is like as a surgeon in the UK, how to pass your MRCS Part A. And he is someone that you see that has a passion for this stuff, and you may want to pursue a similar path to you. You may have questions, and Peerr identifies those individuals whom you can reach out to and get advice. We genuinely believe mentorship is very key for doing well in your career, in your studies, in your exams. So Peerr is a place for that, and pretty soon we will allow you to find opportunities and be able to engage directly with these peers. So I think what you can say, Peerrs is a place not only where you can find peers, but you can find mentors and improve and build on your network.
Exactly. The next thing is, right, so about the network is not just opportunities, it's also about, so we talk a lot about engaging, right, finding out what specialties are like, finding out what life is like, finding inside tips and tricks. You just mentioned Zuhaib Siddiqui, right? ENT surgeon. Now he's great because he's also real and he gives you genuine advice. He gives you genuine tips that you need for your MRCS when you want to do the exam. They're real insights. And then you'll be able to work hopefully with him. So he puts out research projects as well. So hopefully we'll be able to offer those through Peerr. And hopefully if you show that engagement with him, hopefully you can get that edge in being selected, right? So moving on to the final aspect of it now. Medical school is expensive. If you go to a central London medical school, the tube fares, the bus fares, even lunch, that sets you back quite a lot of pounds over the week, over the year, etc. Right? And we're in this era where everyone wants to earn some money. Now, the question is, right, what if you could earn money from just being a collaborative person? Like we said, med school is not dog eat dog. You learning very well about the heart's anatomy and all of that jazz. If you've got great notes on it, share it with your friends. And if other people are benefit, you get paid for that. How does that work? So that's the idea behind Peerr, right? It's like how YouTube does it, right? If you can earn money from putting valuable content up, why can't you get paid for it? So we've taken that, we've done that for Peerr, right? And I find that a lot of medical students, sometimes you need a bit of cash. Okay, you need a bit of cash. And one of the easiest ways to earn some cash is to share what you know, right? Or to share your notes. Believe me, there is nothing from being dog eat dog or trying to hide notes or trying to hide exam questions or whatever it is. You sharing that will just earn you actually brand, money, respect amongst your colleagues, and it'll actually bring opportunities for you. Someone might say, you shared this with me, how about, do you want access to this as well? So you get opportunities thrown your way. Anything to say on the money aspect of it all?
No, I think in this day and age, there's so many ways to make money, especially as a medical student. We've been there, done it. And I think Peerr is a great place where you're not wasting time while earning money, right? You're doing something that benefits you, your career, your studies, your exams, and you're getting paid for it, right? Exactly. And you share valuable knowledge, you make money from that as well. So I think it's a great way, especially as a medical student.
Obviously, we're not biased at all. We're just the co-founders of Peerr and we're just trying to push the product. But you get it? Okay. So we'll see you otherwise in the next episode.